Picture this, a bright, sunny Saturday morning in a little town called Oakwood Hills. It's the kind of place where birds chirp, kids ride bikes, and everything feels calm and happy. Everyone in town thought they knew how things worked around here. They had rules, lots of rules, and most people followed them without a peep. But today was about to get wild, and no one saw it coming. Now, let me introduce you to Jake Carter. Jake was a guy who liked things simple. He loved his coffee super strong black as night, no sugar, no fuss. He also loved his weekends quiet. No loud noises, no big plans, just him kicking back with a good book or maybe tinkering with stuff in his garage. He'd just moved into a cute little house on Maple Street, a cozy place with a big front porch and a tiny yard. When he rolled into town with his beat-up blue pickup truck, he thought, this is it. My new start. Life's gonna be easy here. Oh, Jake. Poor, sweet Jake. He had no idea what was waiting for him. See, Jake wasn't like everyone else in Oakwood Hills. Sure, he looked normal, tall guy, messy brown hair, always wearing a faded green jacket. He smiled at people, waved hello, and didn't make a fuss. But here's the thing, Jake had a secret. A big, juicy secret that he kept tucked away like a treasure chest buried under the floorboards. Nobody knew about it, not the lady next door who watered her flowers every day, not the kids zooming by on scooters, not even the grumpy old man who sat on his porch yelling at squirrels. Nope. Jake's secret was all his, and it was about to shake things up in a way nobody could guess. That sunny Saturday started like any other day. Jake woke up early, made his coffee, and took a big sip while looking out his kitchen window. The sky was blue, the air smelled fresh, and he felt good. He grabbed his keys, hopped into his old blue pickup truck, and drove it right into his driveway after a quick trip to the store. That truck wasn't fancy, it had scratches on the side, a dent in the door, and a loud rumble when it started. But Jake loved it. It was his, and he parked it right where it belonged, his own driveway. No big deal, right? No harm done. Just a guy and his truck, minding their own business. But here's where things get interesting. Someone was watching Jake. Not just watching, staring hard. Someone in Oakwood Hills didn't like that truck one bit. They didn't like how it looked, how it sounded, or maybe even how it sat there all scratched up and proud. Who was this mystery person? Why did they care so much about Jake's truck? Was it the noise? The color? Or something else? You're gonna want to stick around, because this story's about to get really, really good. Let's rewind a little. When Jake first moved in, he didn't make a splash. He didn't throw a big party or tell everyone his life story. He just unloaded his boxes, set up his coffee maker, and started living his quiet life. The neighbors noticed him, sure, but they didn't think much of it. Oh, there's the new guy, they'd say, peeking out their windows. He seems nice enough. Some waved. Some didn't. But they all figured he was just another regular person, someone who'd fit right into their little rule-loving town. Boy, were they wrong. That morning, as Jake parked his truck, he didn't see the eyes on him. He didn't hear the whispers starting to buzz around Maple Street. He just climbed out, grabbed his grocery bag, nothing fancy, just some bread and a can of soup, and headed inside. The truck sat there, all alone, looking perfectly happy in the driveway. To Jake, it was normal. To him, it was home. But to someone else? That truck was trouble. Big trouble. Imagine being Jake for a second. You're new in town, trying to settle in, and all you want is a peaceful day. You've got your coffee, your comfy chair, and maybe a plan to mow the lawn later. Everything's fine, right? But what if someone out there didn't want you to have that peace? What if someone was already planning to make your day a whole lot harder? That's exactly what was happening, and Jake didn't even know it yet. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and Oakwood Hills went on with its usual Saturday stuff. Kids laughed down the street, playing tag. A dog barked somewhere nearby. The smell of fresh-cut grass floated through the air. It was the kind of day that felt perfect until it wasn't. Jake's truck sat there, quiet and still, but it was like a magnet pulling trouble right to his doorstep. And that trouble had a name. Well, not yet, you'll meet them soon. But trust me, this person was about to stir up a storm Jake never saw coming. So, who was watching Jake? Why did they hate his truck so much? Was it just about the truck, or was there something bigger going on? Maybe they didn't like new people. Maybe they loved rules way too much. Or maybe just maybe they were about to pick a fight with the wrong guy. Jake's secret was still safe for now, locked up tight in his head. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, do they? Nope. They come out when you least expect it, and when this one did, it was going to flip Oakwood Hills upside down. Hang on tight, because this is just the beginning. That sunny Saturday morning was about to turn into something wild. Jake thought he'd have a quiet day, but someone else had other plans. Plans that involved chains, rules, and a big surprise nobody could predict. What do you think's gonna happen next? Who's watching Jake? And what's his big secret? Don't go anywhere, this story's about to take off, and you won't believe where it lands. Okay, so things were about to get messy in Oakwood Hills. The sunny Saturday morning was still humming along, but trouble was brewing on Maple Street. And that trouble had a name, Tom Bradley. Around town, everybody called him the HOA cop. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is like a club that makes rules for the neighborhood. Tom was the boss of that club, and oh boy, did he love being in charge. Tom wasn't like most people. He didn't care about playing games or eating ice cream or even petting his fluffy little dog, Sparky. Nope. What Tom loved most was rules. Rules were his favorite thing in the whole wide world. He carried a clipboard everywhere clipped full of papers with lists of stuff people could and couldn't do. Don't park here. Don't paint your house that color. Cut your grass this short. Tom walked around town with that clipboard and a big, grumpy frown, acting like he was the king of everything. And on this morning, he had his eyes locked on one person, Jake Carter. Jake was just minding his own business, standing on his porch with his coffee, when Tom marched right up his lawn. Picture this, Tom's a short guy with a shiny bald head and a shirt tucked in way too tight. He stopped right in front of Jake's old blue pickup truck, the one parked in the driveway, and pointed at it like it was a monster. "Your truck's an eyesore," Tom barked. His voice was loud, sharp, and mean, like a dog snapping at a mailman. "It's ugly. It's scratched up. It doesn't belong here. It's against the rules, and I'm chaining it up." Jake blinked. He didn't even get a chance to say, "Hey, wait a minute." Before he could open his mouth, Tom pulled out a big, rusty chain from his bag. It clinked and clanked as he dragged it over to the truck. He wrapped it around the wheel once, twice, 3 times, then snapped a giant padlock on it. Click. The truck wasn't going anywhere now. Tom stood back, crossed his arms, and grinned like he'd just won a prize. "There," he said. "That'll teach you." The neighbors heard the commotion and peeked out their windows. Curtains twitched. Eyes stared. "Who does this new guy think he is?" they whispered to each other. "Parking that junky truck like he owns the place? Ha! Tom'll show him. He'll learn his place soon enough." They nodded and smirked, thinking Jake was just some nobody who didn't know the rules of Oakwood Hills. They figured Tom was the boss, and Jake was in big trouble now. But here's the thing, Jake didn't freak out. He didn't yell. He didn't stomp his feet or shake his fist. Nope. He just stood there on his porch, hands stuffed in his pockets, watching Tom like it was no big deal. The wind blew a little, ruffling his messy brown hair, and a tiny smirk, a super small smile, crept onto his face. It wasn't a mad smile or a scared one. It was calm. Too calm. Like he knew something nobody else did. What was going on in his head? Why wasn't he mad? Did he have a plan? Something about that smirk made you wonder, what did Jake know that Tom didn't? Tom didn't notice the smirk, though. He was too busy feeling proud of himself. He puffed out his chest, waved his clipboard like a flag, and shouted, "This is my neighborhood. You follow my rules." Then he turned and stomped off, his shoes smacking the pavement. He thought he'd won. He thought Jake was scared or embarrassed. Oh, Tom. You had no idea who you were messing with. Inside Jake's house, it was quiet. He sipped his coffee, still warm in his mug, and peeked out the window. The chain glinted in the sunlight, locking his truck in place. Most people would have been mad. Most people would have run outside, yelling, "Hey! That's my truck! You can't do that!" But not Jake. He just watched. He leaned against the wall, took another sip, and let that tiny smirk grow a little bigger. It was like he was saying, "Go ahead, Tom. Do your thing. I've got this." The neighbors kept whispering. Down the street, Mrs. Jenkins, the lady with the flowers, called her friend on the phone. "Did you see that?" she said. "Tom chained up the new guy's truck. Guess he's not so tough after all." Her friend laughed. "Yeah, he'll learn to follow the rules now. Tom's the boss around here." Across the road, little Sammy, who rode his bike all day, stopped and stared. "Cool chain," he said to his brother. "But that new guy looks weird. Why's he so quiet?" Everyone thought Jake was weak. Everyone thought Tom was strong. Everyone was wrong. See, Tom had been the HOA cop for years. He loved telling people what to do. Last month, he made Mr. Larson paint his fence white because brown was against the rules. The month before, he fined Miss Ellie for leaving her trash cans out too long. People didn't like Tom much, but they listened to him because he was loud and bossy. He thought he could boss Jake around too. He thought Jake was just another new guy who'd bow down and say, "Yes, sir, sorry, sir." But Jake wasn't like that. Not even close. As the day went on, the chain stayed on Jake's truck. The sun moved higher, then started to dip. Kids played. Dogs barked. But that truck didn't budge. Tom strutted by again later, just to check. "Still there," he muttered, nodding. "Good. He's scared now." He didn't see Jake inside, still calm, still smirking. He didn't know Jake wasn't scared at all. He didn't know Jake was waiting for the perfect moment to turn this whole thing upside down. Why was Jake so chill? What was he hiding? Was he just gonna let Tom win? No way. That smirk meant something. It was like a little clue, a tiny light flashing in the dark, saying, "Just wait. Something big's coming." Tom thought he was the king of Maple Street, but kings can fall, right? And Jake? Jake was ready to surprise everyone. What did he have up his sleeve? You'll find out soon. This story's heating up, and Tom's about to get a big shock. The days rolled by in Oakwood Hills, and Tom Bradley, the HOA cop, didn't let up. Not even a little. After chaining Jake's truck, he acted like he was the big winner, strutting around like a rooster in a henhouse. Every morning, he'd march past Jake's cozy house on Maple Street, his clipboard swinging and his frown deeper than ever. He wasn't done with Jake, not by a long shot. Oh no, Tom was just getting started. One day, Tom stopped at Jake's front door and slapped a note on it. It was written in big, angry letters, "Paint your mailbox. It's too old and ugly." The next day, he came back with another one, "Trim your grass. It's too long." Day after day, these nasty little notes kept showing up. "Fix your porch. Clean your windows." Tom was like a bee buzzing around, stinging Jake with rules every chance he got. He'd leave the notes, smirk to himself, and walk off, thinking, "I'll break this new guy. He'll learn to obey me." But here's the funny part, Jake didn't get mad. Nope. Not even a tiny bit. Every time a note appeared, he'd stroll out in his green jacket, pick it up, and read it. His eyes would scan the words, "Paint this. Fix that." And then he'd chuckle. Just a quiet little laugh, like it was the silliest thing he'd ever seen. Then, plop. He'd toss the note right into the trash can by his door. No yelling. No arguing. Just a chuckle and a toss. What was so funny? Why didn't he care? Something was up with Jake, but nobody knew what yet. The neighbors noticed all this, and they started talking more. Oh boy, did they talk. Mrs. Jenkins, the flower lady, leaned over her fence one day and whispered to her friend, "That Jake's lazy. Look at him. Ignoring Tom's notes like they're nothing." Her friend nodded. "Yeah, he doesn't fit in here. Too quiet. Too weird. Tom'll fix him good." Down the street, little Sammy and his brother watched from their bikes. "He's gotta be scared of Tom," Sammy said. "Why else would he just throw the notes away?" Everyone thought Jake was a pushover. They thought he was hiding because he didn't know what to do. Oh, how wrong they were. See, Jake wasn't lazy. Not even close. He was busy, super busy, doing stuff nobody saw. Inside his little house, things were happening. Sneaky things. Quiet things. Every day, he'd sit at his kitchen table with his phone pressed to his ear, talking in a low, hushed voice. "Yeah, it's going fine," he'd mumble. "Just keep it ready." Who was he talking to? What was he planning? Nobody knew, because Jake kept those calls secret, like a spy in a movie. And that wasn't all. Sometimes, he'd pull out a fancy leather notebook from a drawer. It wasn't some plain old school notebook, no way. This one was special, with a smooth cover and thick pages. He'd flip it open, grab a pen, and scribble stuff down real fast. What was he writing? Plans. Names. Secrets. If you peeked through his window, you'd see him hunched over that notebook, his face serious but calm. He wasn't worried. He wasn't scared. He was ready. Ready for what? Good question. Then there were the clues, the little hints that started popping up. One day, a neighbor kid kicked a ball too close to Jake's house and saw something shiny on his desk through the window. It looked like a badge, gold and bright, like the kind sheriffs wear in cowboy shows. But when the kid blinked and looked again, Jake had moved, and it was gone. Was it real? Another time, Mrs. Jenkins swore she saw a letter on Jake's porch before he grabbed it. It had a big red seal on it, like something important from a big boss. Looked official, she told her friend. But he snatched it up too quick for me to see. Badges. Letters. What was Jake hiding? Tom didn't notice any of this. Nope. He was too busy pushing harder. He'd walk by Jake's house every day, checking that chain on the truck. Still locked, he'd mutter, nodding. He's not fighting back. I've got him beat. One afternoon, he even stopped to yell across the lawn. You gonna fix that mailbox, new guy? Or do I have to find you next? Jake didn't answer. He just waved from his porch, that tiny smirk back on his face. Tom hated that smirk. Thinks he's smart, Tom grumbled. I'll show him who's boss. But Jake wasn't scared of fines or Tom or anything. He kept doing his secret stuff. More phone calls. More scribbles in that notebook. One night, when the moon was high and the street was quiet, a car pulled up outside his house. A man in a suit got out, handed Jake a folder, and left fast. Jake took it inside and shut the door. What was in that folder? Papers. Pictures. Something big. The neighbors didn't see, they were asleep. But if they had, they'd be asking questions. Lots of questions. Tom kept thinking he'd won. He'd brag to anyone who'd listen. That new guy's no match for me, he told Sammy's dad one day. He's too quiet. Too weak. I'll have him begging for mercy soon. He laughed, swinging his clipboard like a sword. Oh, Tom. You silly man. You had no idea what was coming your way. Every note he left, every time he yelled, every strut past Jake's house, it was like he was digging a hole for himself. A deep, deep hole. Jake watched it all. He saw Tom marching around. He heard the neighbors whispering. And he kept that smirk, that calm little smile, like he knew the punchline to a joke nobody else got. What was he up to? Why wasn't he fighting back? Those hints, the badge, the letter, the notebook were like puzzle pieces. They didn't fit together yet, but they were starting to make a picture. A big, exciting picture. Tom thought he was winning, but Jake was playing a different game. A smarter game. And soon, very soon, everyone was going to find out what it was. What do you think Jake's planning? Is he a cop? A spy? Something even cooler? Tom's in for a surprise, and it's getting closer every day. Stick around, this is about to get wild. The big day finally came in Oakwood Hills, and oh boy, was it a doozy. It was time for the HOA meeting, the one Tom Bradley, the HOA cop, had been waiting for. Tom called this meeting for one reason, to deal with Jake once and for all. He was tired of Jake ignoring his notes, smirking at his rules, and acting like that chained-up truck didn't bother him. Tom wanted everyone to see him win, and he was ready to make it happen. The meeting was in the town hall, a little building with wooden chairs and a squeaky floor. That night, it was packed. Every neighbor on Maple Street and beyond showed up, squeezing into the seats. Mrs. Jenkins sat up front, clutching her purse. Sammy and his brother sneaked in the back, giggling. Even grumpy old Mr. Larson, who usually stayed home, shuffled in with his cane. They all wanted to see what Tom would do to Jake. The air buzzed with whispers as people leaned close to each other. "Tom's gonna crush him," they said. "That new guy's in big trouble now." Tom stood at the front, holding his clipboard like a shield. His bald head gleamed under the lights, and his frown was deeper than ever. He banged a little hammer on the table, bam, bam, to quiet everyone down. "Listen up," he shouted. "We're here to talk about Jake Carter. This guy thinks he's above the rules." He pointed a stubby finger at Jake, who was sitting in the back row, hands in his pockets. "His truck's an eyesore. It's still chained in his driveway, and I'm towing it tomorrow. He's done breaking my rules." The neighbors clapped and nodded. "Yeah, Tom," Mrs. Jenkins called out. "Show him who's boss." Sammy's brother whispered, "He's toast." Tom puffed out his chest, grinning like he'd already won. He waved his clipboard and kept going. "He won't paint his mailbox. He won't trim his grass. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. Well, not anymore. Tomorrow, that truck's gone, and Jake's gonna learn his place." The room cheered louder. Tom was on fire, and he loved it. But then, something happened. Jake stood up. Slow and steady, like he had all the time in the world. His chair scraped the floor screech and the sound cut through the noise. Every head turned. Every voice stopped. The room went quiet, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Jake didn't rush. He didn't look mad or scared. He just stood there in his faded green jacket, tall and calm, with that tiny smirk still on his face. What was he doing? Why wasn't he running away? Everyone stared, holding their breath. Tom froze for a second, then laughed a loud, mean laugh. "What, you got something to say, new guy?" "Too late. Sit down." But Jake didn't sit. He took a step forward. Then another. His boots clicked on the floor, click, click, as he walked right up to the front. The neighbors watched, wide-eyed. Mrs. Jenkins clutched her purse tighter. Sammy whispered, "Uh." Tom's grin started to fade. Something about Jake's calm made him look different. Stronger. Scarier. Jake stopped right in front of Tom's table. He looked around at all the faces, curious faces, nervous faces, excited faces. Then he spoke. "I've been patient," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was strong, like a river flowing steady and deep. "I let you yell. I let you chain my truck. I let you leave your notes. But I think it's time you know who I really am." The room got even quieter, if that was possible. Know who he was? What did that mean? Everyone leaned forward, eyes big as saucers. Jake reached into his jacket pocket. Slow and smooth, like he was pulling out a candy bar. But it wasn't candy. It was a small card, white, shiny, and official looking. He held it between his fingers for a second, letting everyone wonder. Tom squinted, confused. "What's that?" "A trick," he snapped. Jake didn't answer. He just flipped the card onto the table with a little flick. It landed face up, right in front of Tom. The words on it glowed under the lights, bold and clear: "Jake Carter, Mayor of Oakwood Hills." Gasps filled the room. Loud, shocked gasps, like the air got sucked out all at once. "Mayor?" Mrs. Jenkins squeaked, dropping her purse. "Him?" Sammy's brother yelped, "No way." People's jaws dropped, literally dropped, hanging open like cartoon characters. Tom's face went white, then red, then white again. His mouth flopped open, but no words came out. He looked like a fish out of water, flapping and stunned. "Mayor? Jake? The quiet new guy? Him?" Yup, it was true. Jake Carter wasn't just some random guy with a beat-up truck. He was the mayor, the big boss of the whole town. He'd been elected a few weeks before moving in, but he kept it hush-hush. Why? Because he wanted to settle in quietly, without all the fuss. He didn't want parades or parties. He just wanted to live his life. But now, the secret was out, and it hit the room like a thunderclap. The neighbors couldn't believe it. "He's the mayor," one lady whispered. "But he's so normal," another said. "He waved at me last week." Mr. Larson grumbled, "Well, I'll be darned." Sammy tugged his brother's sleeve. That's so cool. Tom's in trouble now. And they were right. Tom's little power trip, the notes, the chain, the yelling was about to crash and burn, and everyone could feel it. Tom stared at the card, then at Jake, then back at the card. No, he mumbled. No, no, no. You can't be. You're lying. His voice shook, and his hands trembled. He grabbed the card, holding it up like he could make it say something else. But it didn't. It said Mayor, plain as day. Jake crossed his arms and looked right at Tom. I'm not lying, he said. I've been watching you boss everyone around. I've been waiting. And now? Now you're done. The room exploded with noise. People clapped. Some cheered. Mrs. Jenkins laughed so hard she snorted. Tom's clipboard slipped from his hands and clattered to the floor. His big, bossy world was falling apart, and Jake, quiet, smirky Jake, had just turned it upside down. What would happen next? Oh, it was gonna be good. Tom's reign was over, and Jake's big reveal was just the start. The HOA meeting was still buzzing after Jake dropped his big secret: he was the mayor. The room was loud with gasps and claps, but Jake wasn't done yet. Oh no, he had more to say, and he was ready to fix things once and for all. He leaned forward, standing tall at the front of the town hall, and looked right at Tom Bradley, the HOA cop, with steady, serious eyes. Tom was shaking, his clipboard on the floor, but Jake's voice stayed calm and strong. You don't get to chain my truck or anyone's in this town, Jake said. His words were clear, like a teacher telling you the rules. The HOA's job is to help people, not bully them. You've been mean for too long, Tom. You're done here. Done. Done. The crowd went wild. People clapped so hard their hands turned red. Some cheered, yeah, Jake. Mrs. Jenkins shouted, about time. Even little Sammy pumped his fist in the air and yelled, take that, Tom. Everyone was stunned but thrilled. Jake wasn't just the mayor, he was the hero they didn't know they needed. Tom's face turned as red as a ripe tomato. He opened his mouth to argue, but all that came out was a jumble of sounds. But. You can't, he stammered. His voice wobbled, and his hands flapped like a bird with a broken wing. Nobody listened. Not one person cared what he had to say anymore. They were too busy cheering for Jake. Tom's big, bossy days were crumbling right in front of him, and there was nothing he could do about it. Jake didn't yell or brag. He just nodded to the crowd, like he was saying, we're good now. Then he turned to a couple of guys standing by the door, big guys in uniforms who worked for the town. Take that chain off my truck, he said, pointing outside. And make sure Tom doesn't touch it again. The guys saluted, saluted, and rushed out to Jake's driveway. The crowd followed, spilling out of the town hall into the cool night air. They wanted to see this. Out on Maple Street, the chain was still wrapped around Jake's old blue pickup. It glinted under the streetlights, rusty and mean-looking. The uniformed guys grabbed tools, big clippers and a key, and got to work. Clank. Snap. The chain fell off, hitting the ground with a thud. The neighbors cheered again, louder this time. Jake walked over, hands in his pockets, and gave his truck a pat. Good to have you back, he said with a grin. That tiny smirk was gone now, it was a real smile, big and happy. But what about Tom? Oh, Tom wasn't done yet, not with fighting, anyway. He stumbled out of the town hall, his shirt all wrinkled and his face still red. This isn't fair, he yelled, waving his arms. I'm the HOA boss. You can't fire me. Jake turned to him, calm as ever. I'm the mayor, he said. I make the rules now. And I say you're out. No more HOA cop. We're done with that. The crowd clapped even harder. Tom's jaw dropped again, and he looked around, hoping anyone would back him up. Nope. Not a single person did. By the end of the night, it was official, Tom was out of a job. The HOA wasn't gone, but Jake promised it would be different. We'll help each other, he told the neighbors. No more silly rules. No more chains. Just a nice town where we all get along. People nodded and smiled. They liked that idea a lot. Tom. He didn't. He slinked off into the shadows, muttering under his breath. Unfair rules, he grumbled. This isn't right. Ha. Guess he didn't like the taste of his own medicine. Poor Tom. He'd been so mean for so long, and now he was the one who had to follow the rules or leave. The next day, things started changing on Maple Street. The neighbors, who used to whisper and frown at Jake, acted different now. Mrs. Jenkins showed up at his door with a plate of chocolate chip cookies. "I'm sorry I called you lazy," she said, smiling big. "You're a good guy, Mayor Jake." Jake took the cookies and laughed. "Thanks," he said. "Call me Jake. No fancy stuff." She nodded and hurried off, happy as could be. Then little Sammy and his brother rode their bikes over. "That was awesome," Sammy said, eyes wide. "You beat Tom. Can we see your mayor card again?" Jake pulled it out of his pocket and let them hold it. "Cool," they squealed, passing it back and forth. "You're the best." Jake chuckled. "Just doing my job, kids. Go have fun." They zoomed off, grinning ear to ear. Even grumpy Mr. Larson hobbled over with his cane. "Didn't think you had it in you," he said, his voice scratchy. "But you showed that Tom who's boss. Good work, kid." He handed Jake a little jar of homemade jam. "My wife made it. Take it." Jake smiled. "Thanks, Mr. Larson. Tell her it looks tasty." Mr. Larson grunted a happy grunt and shuffled back home. Turns out, the quiet new guy wasn't so bad after all. He was pretty great. Word spread fast. By lunchtime, everyone in Oakwood Hills knew Jake was the mayor and that Tom was gone. People waved at Jake when he walked outside. Kids drew pictures of him with crayons and taped them to his mailbox. Someone even left a "Welcome, Mayor" sign on his lawn. Jake didn't expect all this, but he liked it. He'd wanted a quiet life, but now he had friends too. Not a bad deal. As for Tom, he didn't come back. Some say he packed his bags and moved to another town, looking for new people to boss around. Others say he stayed home, sulking and muttering about stupid Jake. Either way, he was gone from Maple Street, and nobody missed him. Not one bit. The chain on Jake's truck? It got thrown in the trash, rusty and forgotten. Tom's clipboard? Probably sitting in a drawer somewhere, collecting dust. His time was over, and Jake's time was just beginning. Justice was served, and it felt good. Jake took his truck for a drive that afternoon, rumbling down the street with the windows down. The neighbors cheered as he passed. He waved back, happy and free. Tom had tried to bully him, but Jake won fair and square. And the best part? The town was better now. No more mean rules. No more HOA cop. Just a quiet guy with a big heart, making things right. What a night. Wow, what a ride, huh? Jake's story is over, and Oakwood Hills will never be the same. Tom's gone, the truck's free, and the neighbors are smiling. But before we say goodbye, let's sit back for a minute and think about what happened. There's a big lesson here, a really cool one, and it's something you can carry with you every single day. Ready to hear it? Let's dig in. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Here it is: sometimes, the person you think is weak is the one holding all the cards. Think about Jake. When he moved to Maple Street, nobody thought he was special. He was just the new guy with a scratched-up truck and a quiet smile. The neighbors whispered he was lazy. Tom called him a rule breaker and chained his truck like he was nothing. Everyone figured Jake was small, easy to push around, like a little fish in a big pond. But guess what? Jake wasn't a little fish. He was a shark, a smart, calm shark with a secret bigger than anyone could imagine. He was the mayor. He had power all along, and he didn't even have to brag about it. That's the cool part. Jake didn't need to yell or fight or wave his fists in the air. He didn't stomp around like Tom, acting big and loud. Nope. Jake just waited. He sipped his coffee, smirked at the notes, and let Tom dig his own hole. He picked the perfect moment, the HOA meeting, to show everyone who he really was. And when he did, boom! Everything flipped. Tom fell flat on his face, and Jake stood tall. It's like a magic trick. The quiet guy you don't notice turns out to be the strongest one in the room. Isn't that awesome? Now, think about Tom for a second. He was the opposite. He acted big and loud, strutting around with his clipboard like he owned the whole town. He barked orders, left mean notes, and chained Jake's truck to show off. "I'm the boss," he'd shout. "Follow my rules." He thought being loud made him strong. He thought pushing people around made him a winner. But here's the funny thing, those who act big and loud, they're usually the ones who fall the hardest. And Tom fell. Oh boy, did he fall. One little card from Jake, and poof. His bossy world crashed down. No more HOA cop. No more power. Just a red-faced guy muttering as he slinked away. Loud doesn't mean strong. Sometimes, it just means you're scared of being small. So, what does this mean for you? Picture this, maybe you're at school, and someone's being mean. Maybe they're loud, bossy, picking on you or your friends. They might laugh or tease, thinking they're the big shot. You might feel small, like Jake did to the neighbors. But here's the secret, you don't have to yell back. You don't have to fight or cry. Maybe, just maybe, you've got something up your sleeve too. Not a mayor card, probably, but something special. Maybe you're super smart, or really kind, or good at something nobody knows yet. You don't have to show it right away. You can wait, like Jake, for the right moment to shine. And when you do, those loud bullies won't know what hit them. Think about your own life. Have you ever felt like the quiet one? Maybe you're not the loudest kid in class or the one who's always talking. Maybe someone's tried to push you around because they think you're weak. But you're not weak, not even close. You've got your own power, your own secret strength. It could be how you help your friends, or how you draw amazing pictures, or how you never give up even when things get tough. That's your card, your mayor moment. You don't have to flash it every day. Just hold on to it, and when the time's right, let it out. You'll surprise everyone just like Jake did. And what about the Toms out there? The loud ones who think they're better than you? Don't worry about them too much. They might seem big now, but loud doesn't last. When you stay calm and smart, like Jake, you come out on top. Tom thought he could boss everyone forever, but one quiet guy with a secret turned his world upside down. That's the trick, you don't have to be loud to win. You just have to be you, strong, patient, and ready. Next time someone tries to push you around, remember Jake. Picture him standing there, hands in his pockets, smirking while Tom yelled. Picture that card hitting the table, mayor of Oakwood Hills, and the gasps filling the room. You've got your own card, your own surprise. Maybe it's not today or tomorrow, but one day, you'll play it. And when you do, the loud ones will fall, and you'll stand tall. How cool is that? So, what do you think? What's your secret strength? What's the thing you've got hidden, waiting for the right moment? Maybe you're awesome at soccer, or you tell the best jokes, or you're the friend everyone counts on. Whatever it is, it's yours, and it's powerful. I'd love to hear about it. Drop it in the comments below. Tell me what you'd do if you were Jake, facing a big, loud Tom. Would you wait like him? Would you surprise everyone? Let's talk about it. This story's done, but the lesson sticks. Sometimes, the quietest person has the most to say. Sometimes, the one you least expect is the one who changes everything. Jake didn't need to shout, he just needed to be Jake. And you? You just need to be you. Keep that secret strength close, wait for your moment, and watch the world cheer when you shine. You've got this. Now go be amazing.